And it's episode 6, wrapping up the week of March the 7th. And this episode is going to be multiple clips. I recorded some of it on Monday when I got done watching Tina Tambor from the Cromford Report give her numbers. And then I did a follow-up with the Wednesday numbers that I run every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Some exciting news we see going on there. And then today is Thursday, and I'm doing the promo, everything else going in. So hopefully this will be out by tonight. So on one of the questions I was asked in a previous episode from a client of mine named Crystal is now a good time to sell a house? And those questions are unique to the individual, because when you are getting ready to sell a house, is this your home? Where are you going when you sell the place that you're living in right now? Now, I just got a text a few minutes ago from an investor who's pretty much done with the condo association and the condo that he currently has. He bought it at a great price. But it's a bottom floor, and it's a 3-story building. He's got 2 apartments above him. Both of them have had plumbing issues over the last 2 years. Their individual owners aren't really interested in doing their upkeep to the point where he's not going to be consistently impacted by flooding, this, that, and the other thing. So he's getting ready to get rid of that asset. So for him, now's a great time to sell. He sells it out, makes sure he discloses all the previous issues that he's had with the unit. Some investor is going to pick it up. Takes that money, puts it into something else, and we might be able to get him wrapped up in something called 1031 exchange, which is where you can take the money that you take out of your asset once you've sold it, put it into another asset, and not have to pay capital gains. This is one of those things that you talk to your tax people about, not just your real estate agent. See if that's right for you if you have an asset like that. But it's a cool little way to make sure you're not selling a property, paying to capital gains, and having less money to put into another one. But Crystal is a owner-occupant. She owns the house. She lives in the house. So I called her up, and my first question was, are you really planning on moving, or were you just doing me a solid and sending me a question that I could answer? It looks like I get some feedback going on. And she says, yeah, she actually was interested in looking at maybe getting out of the state, and wanted to know if she should sell right now and go rent for a while. So that's the first question you really need to ask yourself, is it a good time to sell right now? But you should be asking yourself, is it time for me to move out of this house? Is there a job? Is there family wanting you to move closer to? What's the real reason why you want to move? Because when we are in a market where we are constantly in an upswing and a downswing, a lot of people try to time the market. And timing the market is not really all it's cracked up to be. Now let me show you here in this video what I'm talking about. Okay, and we're back to our handy dandy little PowerPoint presentation here. And the reason why I pulled this thing up is because I wanted to show you, let's say we're in a growth period. All right, and let's say that your house is appreciating faster than normal. And just for the sake of argument, we're going to say this is zeroed out right down here. This is no growth. Your house is not going to be worth any more than it was the year before next year. It's just flattened out. Let's say it's growing at a 1%. And you see it's starting to move up. And year after year, all of a sudden we're in this 4% growth period. And this is awesome. Your house is worth more every year. Your interest rate is probably lower than 4%. If it's not, call your lender. Time to refi. All right. And then it might start backing up because of market pressure. Less sellers, less growth, whatever it is. Interest rate goes up, you have less buyers out there, property starts coming down. So at this point, where in this curve do you want to sell? Well, pretty much anywhere in this curve is not a bad time to sell. Now, you can't look into the future. You don't have a crystal ball. Right? So if it's growing at 1%, it's time for you to sell the house. Right? If it's growing at 2.5%, right, and you need to move because that job across the country says you got to be in that state, it's time to sell. If you're trying to time this whole thing, and this is where it gets counterintuitive. If you sell right here, the first time it hits 4%, that's your price. All right, that's your what you get. You wait a year and the next year just grew another 4%. You just lost out on another 4% of your value because you sold a year early. Now, if you waited and all of a sudden it comes down to 3 the next year, you're like, oh crap, it's only worth 3%. It was, more than it was last year, and that was worth 4% that. But this is still an additional growth of 3%, even though this chart that I drew makes it look like it's going down. Zero line is down here. This is all benefit to you. This is all more money in your pocket until you see this hit 0, and then your house starts losing value. And we have seen this, right? This is what everybody talks about when they're talking about the big crash. And a lot of people are out there saying, oh, we never saw the big crash coming. But those of us on the side of the industry that were actually watching this, we saw the big crash happening. It was about May or June of 2006. And I was working for a title company at the time. And every month they would run the numbers. It was called the Rocky Mountain Report. And the Rocky Mountain Report would come out and say which title company opened so many escrows and what was the total amount of escrows. So you could see what your market share compared to everybody else was. It was, I want to say it was May. Might have been June. But one day, the Rocky Mountain Report came in, and there was no growth in escrows. There was less homes sold and less refis done than the month before. And that's the first time we had seen that happen in years. And I remember really distinctly looking at those numbers and going, okay, last person out of the room, please turn out the lights, because that was going to be the end of this super growth. And if you look at the numbers in the growth period like that, that's really when things started slowing up. It was tremendously high at that point. But the real crash didn't happen until 2 years later. And the real crash that started about 2008 was caused by a whole bunch of things, but a lot of it had to do with people were overextended on properties. People were going out there and they're refinancing their house every 6 months and taking money out. They were maxing out their houses. That was back when we used to have ninja loans. No income, no job. And if you could fog up a mirror, they'd give you a loan. And they didn't even really bother to appraise the value of the property. The appraisers were just saying, rubber stamping everything that came across. So we had a huge amount of money wrapped up in a huge amount of loans on a lot of properties. Back in 2006 and 2007, adjustable rate mortgages were a really big thing, right? 4, 5, 6, adjustable rate mortgages was this really cool way you could lock in a loan at an under market rate. Market's 3% today. With an adjustable rate, you could get a 2. And you could get a 2% loan, but in 2 to 5 years, you would have to refinance out, because otherwise your interest rate would jump from that nice little 2 that you wrapped in and under up to a market rate of whatever it would be in then. And a lot of people were sitting there going, hey, no problem. I'm going to lock in a 2. I'm going to pay a 2. I'm going to be happy at 2% interest. And then all of a sudden, when it's time for me when they're about to jump this, I'll just refinance. I'll have equity in my property and whatnot. And I will be able to get a new loan, so I don't have to worry about that big jumping down. And we all knew the first set of those that were going to happen was going to start coming due right around 2007. Those were going to be the first ones who had signed up on that, and they knew it was going to happen. Well, now we have this interesting little thing, because if you got yourself an adjustable rate mortgage with a 2-year term on it, meaning you have to either start paying the new interest rate, which is going to be inflated, or you're going to have to refinance out your house in this 2-year window. In 2007, your house suddenly wasn't worth more than it had been all that time before. And worse than that, interest rates had actually gone up. So a lot of people who had bought the biggest, most horrendous house they could possibly get into at 2%, thinking all of a sudden we're going to be able to refi, suddenly got a new mortgage bill in. That was a lot more. And that started kicking things loose. Here in Arizona, we also had this weird little thing happen that was specific for us that kicked us off even quicker. Was there was a immigration bill that was passed by the state where they would actually go after the employers who employed illegal aliens and did not do the proper background check on them. That also came due right around then. And what happened then was a lot of employees were told not to show up to work until they could prove citizenship or that they had a green card and the right to work there. And a lot of those employees decided, okay, it's time to get out of Arizona, and they left. And a lot of landlords suddenly didn't get their rent check that month. We had a bunch of people suddenly leave the state in that time period. I heard a number once that said that 100,000 people just decided to leave Arizona over the course of a couple months. So now we have a bunch of landlords who are making mortgage payments because they've been doing exactly the same thing. They've been maxing out their loans on their properties because you could buy a place 100% interest, 100% loan on it, and your mortgage payment or your rent payment from your tenant was making your mortgage payment and your upkeep payments and everything else. And even if you're not making dime one in cash flow in your pocket, you're still getting the appreciation from year to year, and your loan's getting paid off. I heard about a guy who lost 100 houses. He had 100 rental properties and got creamed, and it was a snowball effect. One started going and he lost them all. So huge glut of property, exact opposite of what we have right now. Huge glut of property, not a lot of people available at those rates. Because the market was so screwed up, we went into a recession and all hell broke loose. So that's what people today, a lot of us who lived during that time period, a lot of it have that in the back of our minds. All right, that's the big fear that's going to happen, and a lot of people, sellers today, are looking at it like I have to sell now. We're going to see this huge crash. I'm not saying that the economy is not going to crash tomorrow. I'm not saying that somebody's going to take a really good look at how much we're spending and how much money we're printing up and revalue the dollar at something hideously less. We could have COVID-3, the reckoning, suddenly pop up out of Brazil or something like that, and we could all be locked down again, go into a new recession. Because these things happen. They're called black swan events, and they're black swan events because you can't tell they're happen until they happen. But if you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out, should I sell the house right now? And you don't have a reason to sell the house right now, go ahead and stay in the house. If you're thinking this might be a really good time to get out of the 4-bedroom house that you don't need because the kids aren't living with you anymore, or maybe it might be time to make the move that you want to move because you've always wanted to retire and move somewhere else, yeah, definitely look into it. But just remember, this is a decision that you're making, hopefully with an advice of a real estate agent, hopefully with the advice of a real estate agent who's not going to try to talk you into selling the house just to get a sign up on your yard, and decide, is it time for us to get going? Right? Now is a good time to be selling. Right? Is next month going to be a good time to be selling? Yeah, next month's going to be a good time to be selling. When we start looking at these numbers that I'm telling you about, and we see the weekly rates are starting to go up, and we're starting to see days on market go up, and we're starting seeing us going past that 2-month period where we have more houses out there that can be sold in 2 months, if not one house hit the market the next day, then we'll start moving into a buyer's market, and that's when you're not going to see your big bidding wars. And Tina mentioned something that was a really, really great way to put it, is right now to sell your house, getting 10, 15, 20 offers on your house, most of them over asking is a thing. right? When you are selling your house, you only care if you get one offer, right? So it's not going to make any difference to you whether or not you're getting 20 offers or if you're getting 5 offers, if those 5 offers are what you want to see and if they're all over asking. So that's probably the best way I can answer that question. If you are interested in getting your house ready to go, there's a really great article that came up on Art of Manliness, which is one of the websites that I follow. And it's just simple how to get your house ready to sell. And it covers a lot of the basics. Go through, make sure the exterior looks good. Make sure your landscaping's kept up. Make sure things are clean and washed. Make sure your entryway, and the first impression people get of your house is when they pull up to it. Make sure it looks good from the street. All right. The second impression they're going to get is the front door. Make sure the front door looks taken care of. Any scratches, paints. If you have an animal that likes to claw at the front door, you might want to consider replacing that front door. These are important things. Windows are something, clean them. Right. Maybe new curtains. Right. These aren't really, really big things to do, but make sure, you don't have the water stains or anything on the windows, or there's little cobwebs inside there. Clean out your garage. A lot of people clean the entire house. You walk out into the garage and it is just packed with all the stuff. We tell you to declutter, so they just declutter it into the garage. Garages are big selling points. You'd be surprised how many people, it's like the garage is the first or second thing they walk into. They want to see if there's a work area. They want to see if the hot water heater is located out there. They want to see if the washer and dryer is out in the garage, like it is in a lot of houses here in Arizona. They want to see if you have storage out there. All right. So make sure your garage take care of. If you're not going to epoxy the floor, clean up the oil stains. All right. The decluttering on the inside. This is something we always tell people to do. We tell everybody to do this. The person who's walking into the house to buy the house has to be able to visualize themselves making it their home. They do not need to be looking at your home. Take down personal pictures. Take down all those things that make that house uniquely yours. Don't take all the furniture out, because it really does help people understand the space and where things can go. But make it easier for them to realize that that house could be theirs. Okay. Kitchen counters, clear as much stuff off the kitchen counters as possible, especially if you have a small kitchen. If you have small kitchens, small cabinets, don't emphasize how small they are by having the microwave, the Keurig, the blender, your Ninja blender, the toaster oven, and everything else that you might have on there. Narrow that stuff down. Try to make, emphasize how the counter space that you do have. Same thing with shelving. If you have any built-in shelvings, take as much stuff off of them as possible. It's good to leave some stuff up there, but let people think that wow, that's a lot of space up there. Pantries, same thing. If you store food, and you have your pantry is full, and you've never seen the back of that bottom shelf, and you probably have something in there that's expired 5 years ago, but it's still good. Clear all that stuff out. Make the spaces look bigger than they actually are. Anything that you do need loose, put them in containers. The container stores here you can put stuff in containers, shove it underneath your bed. Right. The very fact that people open up a closet or something and they see a bunch of containers in there will actually help them think that you have a lot more space. There's certain clothes that you can pack up in a container. There's this product out there that will actually vacuum seal, suck all the air out of it to really compress your space. And other couple things I'd like to notice is prepare for strangers to be in your house, and people go through cabinets. They're going to open up your bathroom cabinet. I don't know why they do it. I don't know why they always insist on opening up the refrigerator. Right? But they're going to go in there and open up and look in your cabinet. So if you have any medicine, get it the hell out. Right? If you have alcohol, just move that stuff somewhere else where other people won't see it. And also remember, I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting there at an open house and a family comes in, mom, dad, 3 kids, and they all shoot off in different directions. Right? Understand that you might have a 5, 6, 7-year-old suddenly wander unaccompanied into your bedroom. Right? Try to make your house a little bit more child friendly and whatnot. Anything that's small and breakable, anything, get it out of the house, store it somewhere. Just understand that this is going to happen. Other thing is, if you have a cat, change the cat box every freaking day. Every day. I know you can't smell it, the rest of us can. And that's even, I have a cat, and I will come home from work some days and go, wow, cat box, clean it. So do that. Little touch-up paints around the house you can do. I did a little quick one on this. If you have a dead light bulb in any light fixture, replace it. Even the one at the top of the entryway that you have to get the big ladder to get to. It is, I can't tell you how many times I walk into this really gorgeous bathroom and it's got 3 different light bulb styles. So uniform lights, replace all your lights. You might want to consider hiring a professional cleaner. They do great work. They're relatively cheap. They will scrub all the nastiness off the stove. Some of them will actually go into your refrigerator. And they do windows nowadays. Other things along these things I'd like to point out is there's a bunch of little things. Your agent will talk to you about these things when they come through and they preview the house. They should be previewing your house before they actually are giving you a price they can list at. Right? And if they're just going to give you a number, oh yeah, we can sell that for $350 over the phone, they're not really doing their job, because they need to come in there and actually see what it is that they're going to be selling. And they need to be telling you what the small things that you can do to make that house sell better and sell for more. So these are pretty much the highlights of what you're looking at on that. I can, there's another conversation I could just go on for hours on. So hopefully, all things considered, I'm going to leave the article in the show notes below. Hopefully this answered Crystal's question between that and the phone call I had with her. Follow up on this, I'm going to go straight into Tina and what I recorded on her on Monday. And then I'm going to follow up with my Wednesday numbers and then wrap up at the end of this. So thank you very much for paying attention to this part, and off to the next. So I just got done listening to the Cromford Report's Tina Tambor. She was hosted by Security Title on a Zoom webinar earlier today, and she was going over this week's numbers, or this month's numbers so far. A couple things she wanted to point out is that the economy in Arizona is poised to recover after COVID and everything. We're looking at an 11% jobs increase over the next 2 years. We've had over 519 companies move into the Arizona region over the last 5 years. We got the big tech industries are starting to come in. Just heard something about Robinhood's moving out here. So and one of the things she's pointed out is that even though they come in and they say, hey, we're setting up this company and we're hiring 15,000 workers, they're not hiring 15,000 workers on day one and taking off. Those people are going to be floated in over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. So you're going to see a steady pull of new people coming into the valley, not just a big glut coming in at the same time. The other big thing that everybody's looking at out here on the market is forbearance. There is a lot of individuals who were impacted by COVID and they were not able to make their rent payments. They were not able to make their mortgage payments. Because of the laws that were passed during COVID, they put these loans, and in some cases these rents, into forbearance. That means you did not have to make the payment if you could not make the payment, and the bank would just sit there and hold on and not instantly going into foreclosure, or a landlord would not instantly starting to evict you until you had a chance to get everything straightened out. Everybody's watching for April 1st, right? That is when the forbearance deadline hits. And we're not sure whether or not the federal government is going to continue that on. There's a chance that if the feds don't do it, the state might. The other options on that thing is that even though the feds no longer are doing it, the bank still might do it also. Right, so this is something that's very, very much up in the air. But if you currently have a loan that's in forbearance, you should probably start looking at your game plan, right? And start looking at, what are we going to do if the bank suddenly knocks on our door and says, you owe us the last year? Or they might come in and just say, hey, yeah, you didn't pay for a year. We're just going to tack that on to the end of your loan. It'll become a balloon payment at the end of your normal year span. If you suddenly had the money to make that payment and get caught up, it might benefit you, because when you take that chunk of change and put it on the end of the loan, you're going to be paying taxes or interest on that for the whole length of your loan, and you will never be touching that particular principal. So it sort of benefits the banks if they want to do that. They're just effectively getting the chance to charge you more interest during the life of that loan. So we're not seeing anything coming up along those lines. We're all waiting for April 1st. Now, I tell you this to tell you that. I tell you that to tell you this. I'm starting to see a lot of people chattering about how the forbearance foreclosures are going to come swooping in and save buyers. And just do not be a buyer, because as soon as these forbearance hits, as soon as these evictions happen, we're going to be able to go out there and pick up houses for pennies on the dollar, just like we did after the crash. There will be so much inventory that the market's going to be glutted. I don't think that's going to happen. Cromford Report doesn't think that's going to happen. A whole bunch of people smarter than me doesn't think that's going to happen. And there's just not enough houses to make up for the lack of inventory that we have. If every bank started and foreclosed right that second, and they all hit the market at exactly the same time, it would be a little speed bump, and then a week and a half later, we'd be back to where we're at right now. A house is a house is a house, all right? And if you kick somebody out of a house, they still need a place to go live. Not everybody goes back and lives with family. Not everybody winds up homeless. They generally wind up being renters. And that's what we saw a lot of during the crash, is banks were foreclosing. Banks were selling the house to an investor. The investor would turn around and rent that house out to somebody who just got foreclosed on. So it was like a big game of musical chairs. Everybody just took a step up to the left, and the music stopped. The banks made money, the investors made money, and the regular consumer got screwed. So this conversation about these foreclosures coming in after the forbearance is gone is the exact same conversation I heard back when everybody was talking about the shadow inventory. And these magical houses that the banks had stored away in the vault would suddenly come onto the market all at the same time. And the professionals never saw it. Professionals who are tracking every house in Maricopa would tell you all day long, if the banks were holding properties, we could see it. And the banks aren't holding properties. And the banks are not hitting foreclosure right away when they can, because we're still watching properties drop back then. So, and that just never really did turn out. Right? And I'm seeing that same kind of behavior where people think that there's going to be some magical thing that comes into the market and saves everybody at the last moment, or crashes the market at the last moment. And if you believe otherwise, if you have a conversation you want to have with me, if you want to have an argument with me about why the forbearance is going to do all of this, message me below, send me an email, send me a death threat. I'll have that conversation with you all day long. You'll probably lose. All right? It's because, all things considered, we're still in the seller's market, right? If a normal is 100 on the credit meter or on the seller meter, we're still at 511, right? That is how much we are in the seller's market right now. Now, we did see something really cool, or not cool as the case may be, over the last week, is that the interest rates spiked up a bit. Interest rates took a little jump up, and then all of a sudden, less people started putting in for mortgage applications, which is the first step towards buying a house. And we starting to see what Tina was calling maybe the foot is coming off the gas pedal. Now, we still got a lot of momentum. We're still going 120 down to 17. Right? Just because you take your foot off the gas does not mean that you're going to stop in the next half mile. We still got a long way to go. And the only thing that's really going to knock this down is we need more houses out there for sale. We need more signs in yards. We need more people selling their house. And we still do not have as many houses built as we need for the people who have come in over the last few years. All right. I'd really like to be able to get some of the charts she shows, and you can see, especially right after the crash up until about 2010, we were not building houses as fast as people were moving into Arizona, and we are still not building them fast enough. There's a huge glut there that we haven't hit. Demand is high, but not as high as you might think. We're only 17% above what should be normal right now. So there's 100 buyers out there in a normal year. We got 117 going. Where the issue is supply. We have 77% lower demand or lower supply than we should be right now. If we should have 100 houses, we only have 33. Now we're seeing demand drop. All right. And that will help us. All right. But it's still that supply right there. And the demand is being impacted mostly by affordability because we are starting to move up, you know, to the point where normal people can't buy a house, but we're still at 60% a medium, which means if you make the medium income amount in Arizona, you can afford 60% of the MLS. So, but we'll see how this turns out. Like I said, this thing just happened in the last week or so where these mortgage rates are starting to look at 3% right now. And that scares a lot of people. All of a sudden they just stop. Okay, rates just went up. I'm going to stop right now and I'm going to wait to see if something comes, if it drops down again, or that 3% just came up and now, you know, like we covered in the last video last week, now I can't afford the house, exactly the house I want, so we'll just stay where we're at. So we're going to be watching this really intensely, and we're going to see what happens in the next couple months. We're 57.5% down on listings from this time last year. And Tina said this, these are the weakest numbers she's seen in 20 years. We are coming into our what should be our peak season. Traditionally, we peak in May, and then we start sliding off. A lot of houses start coming in right in January. You see the curve slide up, peaks at about May, and then starts tapering off. Get a little bump right there around September or so as people suddenly rush, going, "Oh crap, I need to get something in before the holidays," and then we dive off. All right, and we are well under where we were last year, and we're not seeing if we're going to peak as much traditionally as we do in a normal May. Median days on the market is 6 days of all listings up to $1 million. Right? So if you're selling anything on there, medium average days on market is 6 days. You're going to have a contract by the end of the first week. And another really interesting piece of information on this was that 44% of all closed wound up closing over asking price. And for those that were closed over asking price, the average or the medium over was $10,000. So understand that if you're in there and you're in the first week and you're getting in and you're going into the house and you know you got multiple offers, it's going to go over. It's going to go over, and the medium amount of go over is only 10,000. So that's what I got from Tina today. I'm going to cover the regular numbers here in a second. So thank you very much for this part. Okay, new day, new shirt. I recorded that first part on Monday and waited till Wednesday to run my normal weekly numbers. My Tina runs her numbers the day she's doing the Zoom call. So she doesn't get that weekly action that I'm talking about. Although her numbers, and one of the things I didn't discuss earlier was she was saying that when she ran it, we had 109 more properties active than we saw the week before when she ran it. All right, so I'm seeing the same thing. All right, it is Wednesday. These numbers I ran at 9 o'clock this morning on March 10th. Active is over 4,000. We are at 4,040. That's a change of 52 above the week before. This is the first time my chart has seen an increase in listings since mid-October. So that's really exciting to start seeing. We might start seeing the influx in that May seasonality that I was talking about earlier, where, you know, May is our peak month. Right, so we are starting to see some evidence of that going down. New listings, we had 121 more new listings than the week before, bringing the total amount to 2,520. That's 2,520 new listings, a change of 121 above what we saw the week before. And that week, the prior week, was 162 more than the week before that. So we're definitely starting to see some motion over there. That's awesome to see. Our closes are way down compared to last week, but last week was including the end of the month. And I told you how much that end of the month impacts because everybody closes right then. So you're always going to see that sudden surge in the numbers. We had a 2339 close last week. Pending is at 2,079. That's actually down 40 from the week before. We're at week before was 2,119, and that was down 20 from the week before that, where we saw 2,139. So we're pendings are starting to slow up. Does that mean that we're having more inventory out there starting to build up, and that why our actives are going so well? We're going to have to keep watching this to see how this starts playing out, and then we really start seeing the patterns. Under contracts are we're looking for backups or slightly increased to 80 above the week before. We're at 1348 there, and the ones that are looking for back are contracts condition on a buyer's sale. We're at 79, so that is like really, really close to the 80. We're like, first number was 81, next week was 79, next week's 83, this week's 79 again. So we can pretty much say that's flat. All right. And then back on markets, we had 700 houses come back on the market for whatever reason. Buyer cold feet, buyer didn't like the inspection report, appraisal didn't happen, and then the seller didn't want to adjust off of that, and they couldn't come to a conclusion. That's actually slightly down from the week before. So big news is we're up. We have not been up for quite a while, and this might just be a weekly thing. This might actually turn into something bigger. Even as we were going down, we were starting to see it slowly start not go down as fast. And like we were talking about, the interest rates came up a bit, suddenly a little bit less buyer activity out there. But Tina did point out something that I should have quoted, that from a seller standpoint, you can get 15 offers in one day, or you can get 5 offers in one day. You're still getting offers. And if one of those offers is good and above asking price, you are still going up on the market. So we can definitely start to look at that fact is foot's off the gas. We're still boiling down the 17. So just to wrap up this part, had to edit right there. Phone went off right in the middle of my conversation. And, you know, when you're in real estate and you get that phone call and you don't recognize a number, unlike y'all, we actually have to answer that thing. And yes, it's still somebody trying to get me to refinance a college loan that I don't have, or buy the insurance or the vehicle maintenance warranty for a vehicle. Every once in a while, I will actually answer those. I'm going to go all the way through the people and then just mess with them. I'm hellacious on phone solicitors. But I was thinking earlier today as I was rehearsing this in my head, why do I love running these numbers so much? And I think it all boils down to when I was a kid, really young, I was in Billings, Montana. And this would have been about the 70s. And I had this little blue radio. You guys don't care about this, but I'm going to tell you this story anyways. I had this little blue radio, all right? It's like a little clock radio, and it had only AM on it. And I would listen to that little blue radio, just listening to AM. So one, I grew up listening to old country. All right. We're talking, you know, I can't even think of any of them right now. Senility is kicking in on me, isn't it? So sitting there talking, listening to this, but you also had the farm reports. And here was this guy every morning, and I would wake up to what the winter wheat prices were, or how much sow bellies were. I did not know what a sow belly was, but I did know you were getting $42, $49 for a sow belly. So I just thought that was the coolest job in the world. And just this voice of authority over the radio. And so you get older, you start listening to more, you get an FM radio, or you find that really good AM station that's coming out of, you know, some place that you can only get at a certain time of the day because it's bouncing off the troposphere. I mean, when you good AM radio, you used to be able to pick up out of Billings. You could get stuff out of Denver. And so as you get on, you start listening, you got Wolfman Jack and Casey Kasem and all those other good guys. But for some reason, the morning AM farm report really, really stuck with me. So that's become my retirement plan. When I'm done and I'm ready to retire, I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to get my car, and I'm going to drive. And every morning I'm going to wake up for 4 o'clock and go through the AM dial. And when I start hearing farm reports, that's where I'm going to look to retire at. You guys probably didn't need to know that, but if you ever wonder why I do what I do, I am just a kaleidoscope of weird stuff. You guys have a good one, all right? And this is it for episode 6. Questions, complaints, comments, concerns, leave them below. Send me an email, make a phone call. Next week, hopefully have some time to sit down with Steve McCamey, broker for ProStar Realty. We're having timing issues where if I'm in the office, he's not in the office, and vice versa. And hopefully we can get everything worked out across the board here. So also just had a great conversation with an appraiser. He's agreed to come on. We're going to have a timing issue on that. Find out everything that they do, how they do it, why they're not the bad guy most people think they are, and what he likes about that job and that career, and how you could get into it if you're interested. So thank you very much for watching the show. Have a great day.